My name is Emerald Kenny, and my classical music journey started when I was 4 years old, when I started to learn the violin. And when I became 7 years old, I started to learn the piano. Throughout my life, classical music has featured as a really, really big part of it, and it's taught me a lot of skills that I use in everyday life. After secondary school, I considered going to college to study music, but I decided against it in the end because I'd spent a lot of my youth practicing and pursuing it, and I wanted to see what other pathways I could find in my life. Liberal arts really allowed me to explore those other interests. This documentary aims to investigate those who learned a classical instrument from their youth and whether they still play now, or if they have stopped. If they still do, how do they do it? How has that impacted their lives? How do they share it with others?
We'll start with Jingle Bells first. Now, I'm going to get you to play this, so that this line
This
for
is
me.
me and two of my piano students. I began teaching classical piano at the start of this year, following in the footsteps of my teacher, Mary Immaculate College, who introduced me to the world of classical music and taught me piano for 11 years.
Do you remember when you started to play music?
There was music in the house all the time. There was a band practice in my house every Sunday. My father had a dance band, and he would have had tenor sax, B-flat sax. He would have had trumpet, drums. He played the violin himself and the trumpet, double bass, and a piano, of course. So there would have been a band practice in the house. You were my first pupil.
I was.
You were.
Wow.
You were.
I remember my first time coming across a musical instrument, which was here in this sitting room particularly, and you handing me a violin and me thinking, what do I do with this? And just wondering and not knowing like where that would take me essentially.
And you see, I was teaching in Cork and friendly with Carmel, your grandmother, and she knew I was, and she said to me, would you take on Emerald? She said, I think she's musical. I said, of course she's musical. So anyway, I said, oh, I really don't want to start teaching up here. I said, I'm tied up below. So I did. And then another person came in the door after you. So, and of course, I know you since you were in the pram. And of course, the piano is a wonderful instrument because you've got your chords and you've got your melody and you've got the whole lot. And ideally, like you, Emerald, it's great to be able to sit down and play something from the ear, from the close out of your head, and then put music up in front of you, and you can do that as well, which is great because if you just play by ear only, you go to a certain level and you don't get past that.
And when you've progressed that far and you want to reach the next level, there's no better place to go than the National Youth Orchestra. The National Youth Orchestra of Ireland provides an environment for teenagers to see if they would like to pursue classical music to a professional level. I got to spend some time with the orchestra ahead of their preparations for their summer concert last year.
There is nothing better than classical music. It is the pinnacle of human expression, and there's really, really nothing like it or anything as satisfying, for me anyway. And all you have to do is envelop yourself in everything that's there, listen to everything, get Spotify Premium, it's worth it, and all that stuff, and learn an instrument or two.
I was about maybe 7 or 8. I started on an instrument called a mini bassoon, which is like a smaller version of the bassoon. It had like less keys and it's more of a simplified version and was less heavy, so easier for beginners to play. And then I moved up through the sizes, and then now I'm on the big bassoon. So as you can see behind me, cool. Actually, it's such a cool experience. Just the people and the music that you play, it's unreal. It's such a cool experience.
It's about 90 people from around Ireland between the ages of 12 and 18 coming together for 2 weeks every year to do really intensive rehearsals with a few concerts at the end of the week. And this course we're going to Amsterdam for maybe 4 or 5 days at the end to do some concerts. and yeah, it's going to be great.
If you could describe the National Youth Orchestra of Ireland to someone who has no idea what it is, how would you describe it?
For Irish people, it's the equivalent of going to Irish college, but for music, I guess. But it's so much more than that. It's such an amazing environment. I have been a member since I was 12, so like since 2012, since the 2012-2013 season. So that's like five years now.
Mum brought me to the open day for the School of Music in Cork, and I remember trying out a cello with the head of the Department of Strings, and the cello was so big for me. It was a full-sized cello, and she told me to give it a hug, because if I didn't, then it wouldn't make a nice sound for me. And that is literally the only thing I remember from that day, but just her telling me to give the cello a hug so that it would give me a nice sound when I was really small. It was such a nice memory. Exposure to it was when my brother first joined, because I was very young when he first joined, and I just remember him coming home and not being able to stop talking about it for weeks after he'd come home. He just loved it so much.
Playing at the level that you're playing, how many hours a day would you practice?
Because I was doing my Leaving Cert this year, I found myself like so caught for time, and it was something that actually really upset me, because music is such an escape for me. It's just completely relaxes me, and I really felt myself getting so wound up without being able to kind of have the time to invest in practice as much as I had before sixth year. In general, like during the summer holidays when I have free time, like honestly I could just stay for hours, 5 or 6, like honestly just, or more. Like it depends on the day, but in general I'm just so happy to just stay there for so long. Students like me who want to pursue music as a career in Cork, the facilities are amazing. For me personally, I really love to explore options that maybe are outside Ireland. I'm curious and I'd love to travel.
So my name's Naomi White, I'm 18 years old and I'm from Salthill in Galway, and I play double bass in the National Youth Orchestra.
How would you describe the classical music scene in Galway?
I'm fortunate to live in Galway and that we have a great traditional music scene and jazz is really coming on there, but in terms of classical music, there's not really much, especially for double bass. So for me there's a lot of travelling involved in the case of any orchestras or gigs that I might be involved in.
Location and money are big factors when it comes to learning an instrument, although this is not always the case. Kelly O'Neill studies viola at the Academy of Music in Dublin. She got her start on an instrument with the St Agnes School Violin and Orchestra project.
How did you hear about the National Youth Orchestra?
It was actually a friend of mine was in it, and he was like to me, you're kind of good, you should go for it. And then I spoke to the woman who's like in charge of St Agnes's, and she used to be manager of it, so then she said to me, yeah, you should definitely do it. So I spent 2 years deciding, okay, will I not? So I went to all the concerts for 2 years and kind of worked up to that standard.
If you could describe what the St Agnes School project.
It's free violin tuition to every child in the whole school. They get like a 30-minute group class once a week, so from like preschool to 6th class. If you're really interested, you can then join the orchestra. You do exams, a lot of them are in DYO. One of them actually just got into the National Youth Orchestra for this season, which is really cool.
Okay, the hardest thing about learning a stringed instrument?
Everything. I don't know, just trying to differentiate between what's written on the page.
So do you play exactly what's written on the page? Or I suppose it's with every instrument, or do you play what you, like your interpretation of the music? Like how much of the score do you actually follow, as opposed to like how much of yourself do you put into it? I'd like to do something with music education or maybe music therapy. I'm not sure whether I'll play full time or not, but it's nice to, I don't know, expand my knowledge as not just a performing musician, to kind of understand more aspects of it too.
Some individuals rediscover their passion for music later on in their lives. This sometimes leads them to follow unconventional paths.
My name is Mary Edmonds and I played piano. I suppose coming into secondary school, I kind of dropped most of my instruments that I was playing. I really wanted to get back into piano again, and so I started teaching myself a bit more. I knew I wanted to go on to do music in third level, so I started to take up piano lessons. I studied at Mary Immaculate College. I took music and media studies in arts. I chose to study the course mostly for music. My love for classical music, for all kinds of music, just even became more intense through studying it at third level. Because my main instrument was piano, I found that it was a little isolating. I found it quite a solitary instrument, and I loved that aspect of it too, but I felt that there was a part of me that really wanted something more, and I really wanted the connection with other people. I always had a passion for West African drumming. Ever since I was very young, I felt a real draw to it, and I was lucky enough to be able to do some drumming here in Limerick. I went on to do my master's in ethnomusicology at the University of Limerick. I always knew I wasn't a performer. I never did it to perform. It's like everybody's on the same wavelength. Everybody comes together, you really lock into a rhythm, kind of like you're climbing a mountain trying to get through the rhythm. Sometimes they're so difficult and so intricate and complex. I was very lucky to be able to express the slightly more solitary aspect of it with the piano and classical music, but then meet so many amazing people and find so much of a human connection with other people through the group drumming.
Music has a wonderful way of bringing people together. The National Youth Orchestra allows for young musicians to connect with one another and experience travel and friendship through music. Last year's course concluded at the Helix in Dublin, where they performed their final concert together as an orchestra.
Something to take away from the youth orchestra is that you're constantly learning so many different skills, amazing discipline, rehearsal technique, that you don't even realise that you're learning it at the time.
Well, they produced wonderful music tonight, and they were all outstanding, and the feedback from the course, they just had such a ball. They saw wonderful things in Amsterdam, they got lots of free time and had a pile of fun, and really didn't sleep a wink, I'm sure, but they produced amazing concert tonight. I was really so impressed and so delighted.
It was one of the very best that NYOI ever did. It was the Shostakovich 10 years back, but this was one of the best concerts ever.
Often when we've been driving them to lessons on a Monday night and more lessons and more orchestra, whether this is all worth it. And each one of them has said it is so worth it. It's something to have for life.
And this is my second year, so my fourth course just done, second summer course.
Wow, and how was that?
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah?
And the second half was absolutely brilliant.
I think I've made some of the happiest memories that I can think of have been made in this orchestra. And I'm gonna miss so much.
I think that when I started 4 years ago, I didn't think that I would feel this way leaving, because music you can play again, you can listen to it again, but it's the people you play it with and the feelings you feel when you play it is just so different every time. And I'm going to miss standing up and being overwhelmed with that same emotion that I did today and every other concert that I did for the last 4 years.
It's the people you meet, it's the life lessons you learn, it's the experiences, it's the music you get to live. Listening to music is a wonderful thing, but creation, making that music is a whole different experience. There's an adrenaline there that it's hard to explain, and I think that's why they keep coming back every year.
Essentially, it's like changed it. If it wasn't for, like, it's basically all I do. So I actually, it's cliche, but I don't know what I would do without it. I'm not interested, like, really in many other things. So everything I do revolves around music, my job, my college.
Music has been everything to me. I always knew that I had to do it. The music for me was finding that connection with other people.
My father died suddenly when I was 13, and he used to be at my side playing with me, Strauss waltzes, everything, even the music of the operas. He'd put up in front of me and he'd say, play that, and I'd say, what? But anyway, I'd make it out and I played as best I could, and I'd practice it and play it over and over again. And I have had pupils in Cork and a few here as well that have used their music as a kind of a solace to them. When times were bad, you could always go to the piano and get lost in it.
No matter what musical path you take, it's clear that music is a force that we can share with each other. It has the potential to heal us and help us grow. So follow your musical path. It could take you anywhere.